Hey, good morning and welcome to our last Cold as Ice. Man, August 30th is already here. It has gone by quickly, and this is our last time we're talking about Cold as Ice. Next month, the month of September, we're talking about Let the Battles Begin, and that's going to be a great month. So hope you can join us. But right now, join us as we look at Job chapter 6, verses 14 through 16. And we're going to talk about his friends and how cold they were in their response to him. Now, they look like they responded well, okay? From the starting of Job chapter 3, you get a response from his three friends that they respond well. But let's don't get ahead of ourselves. Let's go ahead and look at the title, Black Ice Inside, White Snow Outside. Have you ever driven on a road and maybe a little snow is on top of the road and you're going along? Driving on snow is not a bad thing, but there's some black ice underneath it. Wow, you know real quick how slick that is, right? If you've been driving very long at all, you know what black ice is. You know to be very careful on black ice. It's slick as snot, right? Okay. All right, let's get started. Job chapter 6, verses 14 through 16. You've had time to look in your Bibles and find where it is. Let's read together. To him who is afflicted, kindness should be shown by his friend, even though he forsakes the fear of the Almighty. My brothers have dealt deceitfully like a brook, like the streams of the brooks that pass away, which are dark because of the ice, and into which the snow vanishes. Job here is saying some things about his friends, and he says, wow, you guys should have been great friends, kindness to me with everything I've gone through. You should have been better, but you have not dealt well. You've been like this dark black ice on these streams, and the snow has covered it. The snow is above it and not showing you how bad it can be. Here's his three friends. They are Eliphaz, Zophar, and Bildad. Now, they start out in chapter 3 when his friends hear about what's going on in the life and the devastation in the life of Job. They show up. They do the customary rent their clothes, tore their clothes, cover their head with ashes, sat with him as they are observing their friend being so devastated by the loss of family, of his wealth, of his own physical body. And they sit for 7 days with him. No one says a word. So you see that they seem like they're doing well. But we'll look a little bit further. They were compared to foul and troubled waters, frozen like black ice, but outwardly covered in white snow. They appear candid, they appear kind, they appear generous, but prove the reverse. Because now you start hearing them talk to him about, well, the innocent don't suffer like this. Job, you must have done something wrong. And is that what we think? When someone goes through some trial or someone goes through some different circumstances other than being blessed by God, they've sinned, they've messed something up in their life, they've made some terrible choices, and sometimes our choices are bad and they cause us. You reap what you sow, and Galatians tells us that. But we think that a lot, don't we? Remember the disciples came to Jesus Christ and they said, who did sin, Jesus, that this man was born this way? And Jesus said, no one. No one sinned that this guy's born like this. But we think that, right? We think that. Well, today we're going to look at outward versus inward. And sometimes the outward looks grand and glorious, and the inward's terrible. Or sometimes the outward looks shabby and shoddy, but the inward looks awesome. Awesome to God. Let's look this morning. Matthew chapter 23, it's the woe chapter of Matthew where Jesus gives us the 8 woes that he shares with the scribes and Pharisees, Sadducees, lawyers. Mark talks about it, Luke talks about it, but Matthew goes a little more in depth and detail. In there, we read of the woes that Jesus uses against the scribes, the Pharisees, Sadducees, lawyers. These woes illustrate the differences between inner and outer moral conditions. Let's look at those. Jesus' words of woes. Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cleanse the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of extortion and self-indulgence. Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but inside are full of dead men's bones and all uncleanness. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous to men, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. And then Luke mentions one. Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like graves which are not seen, and the men who walk over them are not aware of them. Okay? We read Matthew chapter 23, 25, 27, 28 right there, and Luke 11, 44. Jesus says, hey, you guys may look good on the outside, but on the inside, you're full of hypocrisy, uncleanness, self-indulgence, lawlessness. You need to get that right. You need to get yourselves correct. All right? So, let's look. Beautiful, attractive outside. Beautiful, attractive outside. The outside of the cup and dish. Jesus said, okay, the cup and the dish, the cup and the saucer look really nice outside, but inside it's dirty. I reminded myself sometimes when I would do the dishes. My sister and I used to have to do the dishes, right? Back in the day. We didn't have dishwashers back in the day where you load the dishwasher. One of us had to wash, one had to dry, one had to put up. You know, that's how it worked. And the outside of the dish, you wanted it clean. But more importantly, you wanted the inside. And several times Mom would come in and inspect, and guess what? Maybe I or Pam, whoever it was, did not clean the inside of the dish very well. It still happens at home every once in a while. You know, you think you cleaned it well, but you go to put it up, you think, wow, how did I miss that? And you re-wash it, right? You don't leave it to dry. You want the inside, because what comes from the inside is more important to the cup, to the saucer, than from the outside. The outside of the grave, Matthew gives us and Luke gives us an illustration here of the grave. Matthew says, you know what? You guys look like whitewashed tombs. In that day, in that time, as we're approaching, Jesus is approaching Passover, they would have lots of visitors to town. And so they would mark graves. They would whitewash. They would use this formula of whitewash to whitewash the graves and the tombs and things where people would see them and they would look good, where you would notice them and not touch them, because if you touched them, you would be unclean. That's why Luke in 11:44 says, you don't mark those graves and men walk over them, and they therefore are ceremonially unclean. And so outside you look really good, but inside you're full of dead men's bones. You're full of all uncleanness. And then, of course, outside the body. Outside the body sometimes can look really good, but inside look really bad. A lot of people dress nice and look nice and put a smile on their face, but oh, their hearts are so dark. Job talks about that with his friends. You remember Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2? Some of my favorite Christmas movies with Kevin McAllister, right? And he's lost it at home. They left him at home in the first one in Chicago, and then the second one, they lose him in the airport, and he's in New York, you know. There's two people in each of those stories. The first one, there's his neighbor, Old Man Marley. And he's out there shoveling snow, and he's got this big trash can full of salt that he puts on the ice. And the boys are in the room watching him, and oh man, it's Old Man Marley. He's got this rough exterior. But we find out in the movie, he's really a pretty nice guy. He and Kevin develop a relationship in a chapel there. And he finds out he's really not a bad guy at all. And Kevin says, you're not so bad after all. No, he may look like and hear stories about him, but inside his heart is good. In Home Alone 2, remember the pigeon lady? Oh, she looked nasty. She was a street lady who loved to live on the street, and she had pigeons all over and covered her. She looked terrible in what she was dressed in. but her heart was so good. And her and Kevin develop a relationship. At the end of the movie, he gives her a turtle dove, and he keeps a turtle dove. And he said, we'll always be friends if each of us have a turtle dove. And what about your kid's room, right? The beautiful, attractive outside. But what about your kid's room? You go tell them to go clean your room. You walk in, you look, hey, it looks clean. Until you begin to inspect it, until you look in the closet, until you look under the bed, until you open the drawers, right? I've been there, done that. Mom would say, clean your room, clean your room. I'd put food or whatever under the bed. I'd throw stuff into the drawers, open up the closet, throw it on the floor. Take the top blanket on the bed and just pull it up over the sheets that are all messed up and, make it look good. And, hey, it's clean. And then she'd inspect it, and it was not clean. It may have looked fine, but it was not. It had some problems inside. Sometimes in our own lives, the outside can look good, but the inside, we're full of hypocrisy. We're full of wrong. We're full of uncleanness. We have to be reminded of some things. Notice what 1 Samuel 16, 7a and b. All right, just A and B. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or the height of his stature. He's talking about Saul. Remember at the end of Judges, there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes, and the people complained to the Lord. They complained that we need a king like everybody else. Everybody around us has a king. We want a king. And so they began to select a king. They don't wait for God to select, wanting God to say, this is who will be king. They look at a man named Saul, who was huge, who was a big man, a bold man, a valiant man, a warrior man. And God says, don't look at his appearance or the height of his stature, because I have refused him. He looks good outside for the king, but his heart is not where it should be. And we see that later as King Saul goes through his reign. For the Lord does not see as a man sees. God doesn't look at people the way that we evaluate, the way that we check people out. He sees totally different. And sometimes we want to look good to God, and we make ourselves look good. God, I'm going to church. God, I'm reading my Bible. God, I'm praying to you. God, I'm giving the church some money, God. And God is watching all of that and says, yeah, but I'm inspecting your heart. I'm checking out your mind and seeing if it's renewed. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. But what about dirty and uncleanness inside? What about dirty and uncleanness inside? It may be beautiful outside, but what about the inside? Inside the cup and the dish is what matters. Inside the grave is what matters. It's not the outside, it's what's inside. Inside the body, the heart, that's what matters. Inside the cup, that's what I'm drinking from. I'm not drinking from the outside of the cup. Inside the grave, that's what matters more than anything else. It's not the big, beautiful tombstones. We see that every May. In the area in which we live in Arkansas, it's called Decoration Month. People go out to the graves, they decorate the outside of the grave, and yet inside is all nasty, decayed bones of people who are dead and gone. In fact, my dad hated that. I hate to say that, but he did. He did not like Decoration Month because people would not be at church during the month of May. They would go and visit with family, and they would be like reunions and things like that, and they would decorate the graves. There's no one in that grave. In fact, on my dad's tombstone in Van Buren, it says on the back of his tombstone, it says, ain't here, never was, thanks for stopping by anyway. Because he knows he's not there. He's in heaven with his Lord. There's a decayed body there, but that's not him. And so it's so important. Jesus makes this statement, man, you make these tombs all look so good because travelers are coming in, royalty coming in, everybody's coming in for Passover, so you really decorate them and make them look beautiful outside, but they're all full of dead men's bones. There's nothing good about them. Even though they look nice, they still can't touch them because they would be ceremonially unclean. So, yeah. Of course, inside the body, the heart is what matters. The heart is what matters. The coffee cup. I remember back in the 80s, we had a sergeant at the Van Buren Police Department, and this speaks to a lot of people who drink coffee. You really like a seasoned cup, right? You don't mind the outside being clean, but to take your seasoned coffee cup and to go wash it with soap and water, and the next cup you pour, you get that leftover. No matter how much you rinse it, you still get that, almost like you taste a little bit of that Dawn dishwashing liquid. And he had this cup, this coffee cup that was white on the outside. It was like a ceramic cup. But on the inside, it was dark. I mean, he had drank a lot of coffee in that cup. And he would rinse it. I would watch him. I've seen him many times. Go back there after he'd sit there for hours with that cup of coffee, drinking cup after cup. And he'd go back there at the end of his shift, and he'd rinse it out with water and then lay it down. One night, a young dispatcher came in and washed his cup. So I back there and thought, I'm going to clean this cup for him. What a mistake that was. Because what was inside his cup was how he wanted that cup, because it made his coffee the best. It didn't have that soapy taste. And so I always remember that. What about animal nature? Animal nature. You can clean the outside of an animal, but the inside, they still have that nature, like clean up a pig. We know what happens if you take a pig and wash it down real good and clean and oh, isn't that pretty? He's going to go right back to the mud pit. He's going to go right back into the slop. Annabelle, one night, she and Sally, they went for a walk. When they came back, I was sitting on the back porch, and they came back for their walk. Sally grabs our little swimming pool that we use to bathe Annabelle. She throws it on the ground. I said, what are you doing? So she's getting a bath because she's rolled in something and she stinks. And so I'm watching them, and she's bathing her, and she's getting her all nice and clean. Guess what? It wasn't a day or two later. She's rolled in something again, and she stinks again. It's just something they love to do. It's in their nature. The inside is what matters more than the outside. I'm telling you, that's what Job was looking at in his friends. Your insides look like black ice. You look beautiful outside. You've sat with me and you haven't said things, but now that you're speaking, I see what you really mean by your insides. And maybe you have friends like that, and I have friends like that, or maybe I'm that kind of friend. I don't know. I hope not. But even we have to inspect and evaluate our own selves. God looks differently than what we do. The end of 1 Samuel 16:7. For man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. It's the heart of the matter. And when you choose friends, and you should have some great friends, look at their heart. Don't look at what they have, or look who they hang with, or look how they dress, or look how cool they are. Check their heart. Check their heart, because that's what's going to matter in the long run of being a friend and a great friend. It's going to be their heart. The solution to the problem. We missed a verse earlier. We went 25, 27, 28. Jesus gave us the solution in Matthew 23:26. He said, blind Pharisee, first cleanse the inside of the cup and dish, that the outside of them may be clean also. I've seen so many, I've grown up in church all my life, and I've seen it so many times. New people start coming, unbelievers start coming to church, and we want to clean up the outside of them. Before we do anything else, hey man, you need to get a haircut. Hey, quit wearing that earring. Hey man, you need to dress a little nicer. Hey, you need to stop cussing. You need to quit drinking. We want to clean up the outside so bad. As believers, we want that outside to be clean so that it affects us, and we see that, oh man, you're doing great. You're doing great. You're here at church. You've cut your hairline. But there's still a problem inside. Jesus said, hey, whoa. First, take care of the inside. Take care of the inside. That's the whole idea behind salvation. It's the transformation, not from the outside in, because it's from the outside in. That's called conformity. Transformation is from the inside out. And Jesus said, take care, cleanse the inside first, and then the outside will all be clean. And when you see that in a real setting, the church of Jesus Christ, every believer needs to be worried about the heart of people, not what they see on the outside. Yeah, it may be rough. Yeah, they may cuss. Yeah, they may drink. Yeah, sinners are going to do what sinners do, okay? But when they come to know Jesus Christ and they give their heart and their life inside to Jesus Christ, they fully believe in him and they pour it all into that relationship, you'll start seeing a change. You'll start seeing a change in them. It may not be as quick as we want it, you and I want it, but you'll see the change. You'll see the change. Let's go back to Job. What kind of friend am I? What kind of friend are you? Look good on the outside, but inside you're thinking, you know what? They messed up. That's what God's just punishing them because they sinned. They messed up. Kindness should have been shown, not deceit. What kind of friends do I have? Boy, evaluate your friends. And here's the thing. If you've got 30 friends that you think are great friends, you don't. Man, if a man has 5, he's lucky, right? Guarantee you. What kind of friend is Jesus? Every situation you go through, I hope I have some friends that'll go through them with me from their heart. I hope that when my friends go through it, I can go with them from my heart. But I know one, right? I know one who will. A man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Listen to what Jesus tells his disciples in John 15:15. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing. I have called you what? Friends. For all things I've heard from my Father, I have made known to you. There is a friend right there that will stay closer to us than our very own kinfolk. And boy, I know in my times of distress and my times of iniquity, he's been there. He's been there because he sees not only my outward appearance, he sees and knows my heart. And he'll be there for you too. He'll be there for you too. There's a song recently we've been singing called Graves in the Garden. And I love the lyrics. Listen to the lyrics. I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough, right? Then you came along, Jesus Christ, you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. And then, oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing better than you. Nothing is better than you. Second verse, I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws, Lord. You've seen them all, and you still call me what? Friend. You still call me friend. You've seen all my failures, my flaws, my weaknesses, and you're still there. A friend that stays closer than a brother. Because the God of this mountain is the God of the valley. There's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. There's nothing better than you. Nothing better than you, Lord. Nothing, no nothing better than you. May God bless you, and may you realize there is someone named Jesus Christ who's a friend beyond friends. I pray that you are a good friend, and I pray you have good friends. But I pray more than anything else that your heart is clean and where it should be with the Lord Jesus Christ. Because in the long run, that's what's going to matter. May God bless you. May you have a great day. We'll see you next Sunday. God bless. Bye-bye.